Hey, well, good afternoon and welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories. Just a quick little shout out, by the way. If you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. We release new podcasts every week and there's some great guests on the way. So just a little reminder to do that. But I'm really delighted this afternoon or today to talk to Thomas. So you are a surveyor and you run a company called Smart Home Surveys. Tell us a little bit more about you, how you got into the whole surveying game and how you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
into starting your own business.
no problem. So I've worked in property all my working life. I did a property related degree at university, and I came out of uni, graduated, and I went straight into a surveying role with a big corporate surveying company. I won't say who they are, but they're one of the biggest in the UK. And that was great experience, but I did feel a bit like a number, just a number. It was, thousands of employees in the UK, bit like a number, and I didn't feel like I was learning the mechanics of, the surveying world, valuation world, or even the business world that well,
Mm.
in a big corporation. So I was there for
Did
about a
they,
year and a
sorry to
half.
interrupt, but did they get you to specialize in a certain area or were you a
Always,
general surveyor?
it was all
Yeah,
residential, so it's all
yeah,
it's all houses. What we do now is a bit more than that, but it's mostly residential still. So that was a great grounding for what we did for my sort of residential experience. But I did feel like a number. I didn't feel like I was learning as much as I could in a small company.
mm,
Um, yeah, ultimately, I guess that's one of the challenges of being a big corporate. But so I was about 18 months there. I think it was possibly nearly 2 years. Jumped ship to a small firm
mm,
of about 12 employees, 10 to 12.
mhm,
I learned a lot more there. Was
mm,
learning more about the mechanics of running a company.
mhm.
It's a bit more one-on-one, and I thought, the exposure and the training was actually a bit more intimate and a bit better there. And yeah, I mean, it came to a point where I was seeing the good things that are being done. Um, so my old boss was a good businessman, um, but also the mistakes that were being made. And it did get to a point where I sort of thought, well, hang on, I could probably retain the good things or replicate the good things, and fix the bad. So that's when I decided to, yeah, I was 26, and it was myself and the co-director, who's obviously a co-founder as well. We decided to set it up, set up a
Great.
company,
Yeah, yeah,
take the risk and get the ball rolling.
yeah. Just out of interest, what was it about, if you wind the clock way back, what was it about property in the first place and being a surveyor that you found appealing?
Do you know what it was? This is going to sound slightly embarrassing, but my mum always taught me you should do something that has a practical application
Mm,
and a, theory application as well.
mm,
Um, so I thought surveying was, has an office based aspect, but also has a practical based aspect.
yeah,
I'm not stuck in an office all the time, as a surveyor. Um, None of our surveyors are. They get half and half, which is quite nice.
yeah,
When it's the sun shining outside, it's great. When it's
yeah,
snowing and raining, perhaps not so great. But it's nice, you're not always stuck in an office, and that was actually one of the main things that drew me to it. But I have always also been drawn to property as well. I'm not really sure why, to be honest, but it was a good fit. It was a good fit for me for both reasons.
yeah. I almost became a surveyor because actually I went to Bristol, what was then Bristol Polytechnic,
Yeah.
and which had a very good faculty of the built environment. And yeah, I did 3 years surveying. But when I graduated in 91, which is a very long time ago now, but when I graduated, unfortunately, that year, the previous year, everybody had graduated and got amazing jobs. Oh, like you should see the previous year's graduates, they were getting BMW
Mm.
company cars. When I graduated, it was like a very, really sharp, not very long, but a very sharp recession. And there were literally no jobs for graduates, and my career went into a different path. But I've sort
Oh,
of
really?
always wanted to, and what you said just then is that exactly my mindset as well. That mixture of technical plus bit of office, but actually getting out into the physical kind of world was
Yeah.
very appealing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your company now then. There's a lot of surveying companies out there. Tell us a little bit about what you do
Yeah.
and how you try and differentiate yourself.
Yeah, so the word surveying is very broad.
Yeah.
Um, we do mostly residential surveying, and the best way I could describe what we do is we're your GP, your general practitioner for a house or a property that you wish to purchase. So our responsibility for our clients is find out what the risks are, explain the risks, um, offer solutions if possible, report that in a concise way, and also basically handhold a client through the process of buying because it's stressful. Buying a house is stressful.
Yeah.
It's the most for most people, it's the most expensive investment they ever make,
Yeah.
um, usually significantly so. So we totally understand why people fret about it and they're concerned. I think the average sort of knowledge of the property and the property purchase is actually really low for the average person. Surprisingly low even for me sometimes. And we deal with them day in, day out. So, we offer that service where we're basically taking people start to finish, what the process involves, what
I
the
really
risks are.
empathize with that, by the way, because
Yeah.
actually recently I bought a property. It wasn't the first time, but it's been a long time since I bought one, and I couldn't remember what the process was. And it's kind of like frustrating because you get into the process, and it's oh yeah, I remember this. Actually, the first thing that struck me, I hadn't really changed much in 20 plus years in the UK, but actually everybody assumes that you know what the process is. When you start talking to the conveyancer and the solicitor, and even the estate agent, and actually you kind of forget. And it must be quite bewildering for first-time buyers,
Oh,
especially.
100%. And
Yeah.
as I say, they've got good reason to fret. But I do think solicitors are so, they're so overloaded that with property transactions, I almost don't blame them. And
Mm,
obviously, solicitors talk
mm,
in legal speak. I think something we offer is
mm,
we can sort of provide that middle ground between what a solicitor might be saying and you know, digestible information basically for the client. But you're right, it's totally archaic, hasn't changed much at all. I mean, we can talk about this a bit later, but um, yeah, it probably does need an overhaul. But I think for most people, because they don't move house very often, they probably forget what they're in store for.
yeah. And in terms of where you operate, Thomas, and the kind of services and surveys you do, what does that look like?
So our head office is in Kennington, Southeast London. We will cover all of London and shouldering areas. We, in terms of, in terms of the service, what services look like is if you've had an offer accepted on a property that you want to buy, you've engaged with a conveyancer or a solicitor. You've already engaged with a estate agent most of the time, unless it's an auction thing. You, once the offer's been accepted, come to us or a company like us, hopefully us, and we will basically go out, inspect the property, value the property, and as I say, report back on what the risks are, how to mitigate them. Does there need to be, things resolved from the vendor before contracts are exchanged, or is it a case of the price needs to be negotiated on, um, or is it a case something so, not right or well paired for that particular purchaser because everyone has different risk appetite, and everyone has different experiences with property. A builder is going to take more risk than a first time buyer. Is it
Yeah.
right for that person? And there's always another house.
Yeah. And so what you would offer would be RICS, home buyers reports, and
Yeah.
do you go all the way to
Valuations.
valuations? Yeah.
Yeah. Valuations, home buyer reports, building surveys. They've changed names
Yeah.
now. They've gone to level one,
Okay.
two, and three. But ultimately,
Right.
the whole suite of surveys we offer. And sometimes we have to do valuations for we get asked evaluations for perhaps less glamorous purposes. If there's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
marital split, something like that, we do
Yeah.
valuations for all kinds of reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you market your company.
So we've got a funny. It's a funny line of work this because we don't customer retention is not really a thing because people move house so infrequently.
Yeah.
So like Starbucks, they want you to buy your coffee from them every day. Okay. Well, and that's probably one of their key key goals is customer retention. With us, unless of course the sale falls through for whatever reason, and in almost every case, the client does come back to us because they're happy with what we provided for them and have done a good job. Um, we won't see that customer until they move house again, and that could be 2, 3, 10, 20 years. So the challenge is driving new business. Um, uh, we have to do, we need to do a good job. That is absolutely key. And what we're relying on is, rather than customer retention, it's actually word of mouth. That's the best way we get work. Do a good job for a customer. They have friends, they have family, they have colleagues, associates that they talk to. And it's getting them to basically recommend us off the back of that. So these guys have done a really good job. They were quick, they were efficient, they were likable, reliable. Go to them.
I guess building relationships with estate agents as well is a key one, isn't it? Because most people go the kind of first person they ask, do you know a good surveyor?
Yeah. Well, so the word of mouth thing takes time, takes a long time to
Yeah,
snowball.
yeah. Hmm.
You've got to get the train moving from stop. And that's a challenge. But you do have a snowball effect if you're providing a good service. But with the estate agents, mortgage brokers, listers, great contacts to know, and they're great people to, recommend us. But again, they need to know that we're doing a good job, because the last thing they want is their professional reputation being jeopardized by us doing, or another company doing a bad job. So we always need to make sure we're doing really, really high quality work and providing great service for people.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about the team. How many people do you have in your team?
So we've got 6 surveyors now. We have a head of new business who does a bit of admin work as well, but he's actually, Adam's responsible for, you know, basically, I would say dragging people over the line. That's what I call it to him, but actually, it's making sure people realise how good we are, and onboarding them. Um, and there's the other co-founder, Alex, co-director. We sort of share responsibilities in management. We both still undertake surveys as well. So we know how we can't be accused of, not knowing what the surveyors are going through, because we're still on the ladder sometimes as well. Not as much as them, obviously. But yeah, so we've got a relatively small team. It's slowly growing. We prefer to do things organically. Um, and as I say, we have to match our capacity with the demand in certain areas. And actually, when you get a really hot area like East London, for example, um,
Yeah.
it's quite hot at the moment. We have to kind of make sure that we've got capacity in that area.
Yeah. Most businesses I speak to, inevitably they talk about hiring challenges and retention challenges. What does that look like for you? And are there specific um, areas or concerns that you have in your particular industry?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest hiring challenge is I touched upon it before, the geographical thing. So
Mm,
unlike a business that operates from a centralized office and everybody can just bomb in on the train,
mm,
from wherever in the country,
mm,
and still operate exactly the same. There's only a willingness to travel so far, for each surveyor, and then they're not going to drive 3 hours to do a survey day in day out. They're going to get irritated, and it's going to make them happy. We don't ask our surveyors to do that. So it's the pool of good candidates in any given location is always going to be small. And obviously, I'm sure there are other surveying companies that are, after them as well. So you you're,
mm,
you really are competing over a very small number of people. They've got to
mm.
be in the right place. They've got to be experienced enough, and they've also got to be qualified. So to cut a long story short, our governing body is the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and short form is called RICS. And
Yeah.
to undertake RICS, um, official surveys and valuations, they have to be accredited. That will take minimum of 2 years, um, plus a uni degree. So it could be a uni degree, or they've come from there's surveying schools now, like Sava. A couple of years minimum, possibly more, most likely more. So before they can even get their teeth into sort of the real beginnings, they've got to be accredited. So, it's not easy for someone to just become a surveyor. And actually,
Yeah.
what we found is what we found is very newly qualified staff,
Mm,
surveyors,
mm,
they need they need some more nurturing, they need some more training.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, Ultimately, we want to provide our clients with really, really reliable,
mm,
accurate information, and in the most part, that requires further experience on top of accreditation. So that's a challenge. Yeah, that is definitely a problem. I would say the next problem is, I think the average age of a surveyor is thought to be
mm,
about 55.
mm-hmm,
So those individuals are not far from, wanting to maybe become semi-retired, or they're
mm,
thinking about retirement. It's
mm,
it's on the horizon. So those individuals, not always, but in the most part, they tend to be more experienced. They've been in the game
yeah,
for years. They're more
yeah,
experienced. So, it's having a good mixed bag of the new guys coming through, so you can teach
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Their tenacity is high. They want to learn. They're excited. They really, really want to learn from you. Versus the guys that are really experienced, I would say they're lower admin. They require less input. You can trust them. They'll get on with it. They do a great job. They know their stuff. So it's creating a good mix in the company.
Yeah, I think you've articulated that really well because I guess the challenge with graduates is you sort of need the experience, don't you, to be able to look at a building or look at a particular problem and immediately spot, okay, I've seen this before a couple of times and I know what this is. And a graduate might have great technical foundations from a degree, but it's the on the job piece that they really need. But you can't just send them out on their own. And so if you're doubling up, that second person is not really being that productive for you, are they?
So
Yeah,
again, and that creates operational load um on the company. For if you're taking on a newly qualified person or a non-qualified person, they're not earning you, and they're not fee earning at
mm,
this point. You're
yeah,
having to really pump in a lot of time, a lot of lot of non-billable time into them before they can become I guess an asset that's bringing in money. But we have done it, and we will continue to do it because we've developed some newly qualified people into some really smart, surveyors, um, and really well-rounded people. So definitely something, but you can't do that with everyone, not for a company of our size anyway. The numbers have to work. We have to have a good mix,
yeah,
and also you need the experienced people to give some of their experience to the younger
yeah, of
guys.
course. Yeah,
Alex and I can't do it all.
yeah. Do you have things like company culture? I mean, when you do get people and you hire them, and what does that
Yeah,
look like for
so
you? Yeah,
I would say to be as colloquial as possible, I would say our company culture is all about just adding and providing as much value as we can to our customers. So we're not a surveying company. It's a very litigious world that we live in. We're not the kind of surveying company that are caveating everything we recommend and write down on pen and paper to the hills. Obviously we have to caveat sometimes. That's just the way things are. But we're not covering our backs. We want to report and say things how they are, because good, useful information is the truth, and it's not someone being super overcautious, a surveyor, covering their back in every possible way. A customer wants to know, what's the score here? They want the surveyor to have the confidence to tell them what the problem is, what to do, and they need to, convey that confidence. So it's having the confidence to hang your hat on a recommendation or a decision that or, anything you advise a client, you have to have the conviction to hang your hat on it. So that's kind of what it is.
yeah. Great. Okay. Tell me a little bit. Let's switch and go slightly broader now. The sort of property industry, the process of buying a house. We've touched on this a little bit already. I was surprised, it still seems to be largely a process untouched and
Mm.
untroubled by the march of technology. And sometimes it's sort of interesting because you kind of see these ancient deeds and all this, the searches come back, but
Mm.
it is so it seems so like
Archaic,
kind
isn't
of
it?
process different. It's step by
Yeah, yeah.
step, and there's you kind of think, well, how couldn't there be a blockchain thing when everything's on their nodes and this gets approved here and then what's your view? I mean, why is it still so
So
lagging?
I completely agree with you, actually. Completely agree. It's crazy that, we've got we're into the age of AI and things are still
Mm,
being done like paper pushing, basically.
mm,
Um, I would like to see things done under more of an singular umbrella or some sort of portal where all the information is readily available to people. I think firms have tried to do it, but they've found it very difficult from, I think, a risk perspective, having and a conflict of interest perspective, having,
mm,
you know, maybe an agency and a solicitors and the surveyors, and um, it goes further than that. You've got structural engineers getting involved, we've got
mm,
lenders getting involved. I think it's really difficult to tie up the moving parts, and nobody's
mm.
actually been able to do it. But I think moving to the Scottish, do you know about the Scottish system, Matt?
No, I don't. No, what
Yeah,
do they do differently?
the Scottish system's differently. So
Mm,
although right moving things have brought a lot more information
mm,
to people's laps, Scottish system is different to the English system. So the Scottish system, you've got to have your survey done, you've got to have your searches done, you've got to have your solicitor ready, chomping at the bit. Everything's got to be done before you even make an offer. So the offer you make is based on information rather than lack of information. So the benefit of that is, I think there's less sale fall. I think I had 1 in 3 sales fall through of houses, which is huge. Um, we don't experience that number, but it's relatively high.
yeah,
We experience, I would probably say about 1 in 6, but not one in
yeah,
three. Apparently, one
uh-huh,
in three
yeah,
falls through for some reason, and that might be, an issue with lending. Um, Survey picks up something hairy. There's some
mm,
weird. Usually, it's a weird legal issue, which
mm,
the solicitor finds, or
mm,
there's something horrible in the searches. But
mm,
if you have that information first, you're making an offer, an informed offer, and I think it's better for the vendor. I think it's better for agents. There's no mucking about.
mm.
There's far less risk of post-degree, renegotiation on price.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think people are making serious offers in that case in Scotland based on serious information, and it's just more transparent. I think that would be a way to go. I'm sure that system, and I don't know it too well because I'm not, I'm not Scottish, but I'm sure that system has its flaws. But I think actually, from a sort of transparency perspective and speed perspective, it's better.
yeah. I can see because it's very casual the way we almost just lob in an offer here, isn't
It's
it?
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
You lob in an offer, and the agents then got to work out. Well, is this a serious buy? Is this a
yeah,
serious
yeah,
offer? And even if you are making a serious offer in England, it's still you don't have the information to actually make a serious offer. So
yeah. True. Yeah,
it's exactly as you said. You're lobbing something in and hoping for the best.
yeah. Do you think there is a role in any way for technology to do anything in terms of speeding things up, or is it the case that there are just so many kind of vested interests that it's just very hard to break down the
Tie them
silos?
together.
Yeah,
There are behind the scenes. There
mm,
are portals that surveyors have access to. Not all surveyors, most surveyors have access to. There are some agents have access to, that the lenders have access to. So there is information sharing, but it's not. They honestly, Matt, they're so archaic. These systems
right.
still, and it creates. Some of them haven't been updated in like 15 years. It's crazy, and
Okay.
it's like beginning of the internet style system. Seriously, that's what we're dealing with. Dial up stuff. And
Right.
I just think if there was a portal where there was more information sharing between lenders, between agents, between surveyors, between legal advisors, things are going to get done so much more, quickly. I mean, I
Yeah.
sold a flat um, over a year ago now, and there was one small quirk. It wasn't even a quirk. The lenders. I mean, it took I think about just to resolve this tiny query. I think it was about
Mm,
8 weeks, and this was one of many queries. 8 weeks just to resolve this. I mean, it went on forever. You know,
mm.
I wanted to sell the place.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we found actually that in London, of course, where there's quite a lot of high-rise stuff, and the Building Safety Act after post Grenfell, that's
Yeah, oh,
seems to be
huge
a
fire safety
minefield.
now. Mate,
Yeah,
I feel sorry for the people who have, well, they unwillingly bought a property before Grenfell with a perhaps a cladding with a risk of um, easy combustion, and some of these people are basically stuck. Can't get a mortgage, and don't forget the lenders, mortgage companies are the first people to run for the hills
yeah,
when they see risk, they are gone.
yeah,
So, and there'll be something else that will come around the corner. It's only a matter of time. There's something else. When the lenders see risk, they're gone. So they
yeah,
will write a policy and saying to the surveyors, saying, let us know about these because these aren't things we are happy with, and we
yeah.
change our criteria. We're not going to lend on this. So some people become unstuck, and it leads to, people, as I say, not being able to sell their properties.
Still sticking with technology, but a slightly different angle. Do you think it's a bit more kind of left field this one, but as AI and sort of the combination of AI and its ability to actually analyze imagery. So in the world of medicine now, you're getting assisted ways of looking at MRI scans and screens and all that. Is there anything that you've seen that's an interesting aid to a solicitor who's physically surveying a building?
Um, no, there's nothing.
No. Yeah.
The on-site tools we use haven't changed that.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and I don't think AI can replace a surveyor. And I've thought about this, and I've thought about how could AI replace a surveyor? It requires a physical inspection. So, what are you going to do? Send a robot round? Potentially, could happen, but it requires a lot of in-depth thought, and it requires reflection about what you see.
Mm,
And there is more to it than I think people realize. But when you see a problem in a house, whether it be minor or major, there can be a number of reasons why it exists, and have got to decide what is the
mm,
reason, and you've got
mm,
to decide what's the solution.
mm.
Um, it's that sort of second layer of thought. I don't know if certainly as technology exists as it stands, it can replace that. I'm hoping that it can't. I don't want to be out of a job, but yeah, no, honestly, the only thing that's moved on is software, and that's
Yeah.
speeding up report writing. So
Yeah.
speeding up the way the information that you have obtained gets to the client or gets to your customer. That has improved, and that has got a lot quicker. So, the pen and paper stuff, some people still do it. It's out.
Yeah. It still sounds to me, by the way, when you talk about the industry, it still sounds like a great career to go into because it's not going to get replaced by AI. It sounds like there's a bit of the supply is not quite there. So you're in
Good
demand.
stuff. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
property that everybody's
yeah,
interested.
yeah.
Still a great career to go into, isn't it?
I think so. So,
Yeah.
people always need somewhere to live, and people are always going to be generally, people are risk averse. It's just a fact, particularly when they're parting with, potentially hundreds of thousands,
Mm,
sometimes millions of pounds.
mm,
As I said, it's the biggest investment you're ever going to make. So people are extremely twitchy, some more than others. I think it is a good industry to go into because
yeah.
I think it's AI proof. I don't know, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on it, what you think, but I think it's probably one where it could be AI proof.
I think so. I think if you're running a business, which is slightly different from the job of surveying, then I think AI, like all businesses, is going to have you're going to be much more productive and efficient. I guess I could see that you might be writing a report and, there's a combination of stuff in the report that triggers a couple of questions have you considered this? Did you check for this? That is sort of backstop. But the actual physicality of going into a building and look just because actually sometimes you can smell the damp or you
Yeah.
can, it's, or you touch a wall and those
Mm.
things are very hard to
Yeah.
for AI to ever to. I mean, you've got moisture
Exactly.
readings and things like
Yeah,
that,
moisture
but
meters. Yeah, but I mean, and they're the sort of the bread and butter stuff, the
yeah,
damp, the structural movement,
yeah.
the roof issues, the real subtle stuff, like a design flaw, something that hasn't been designed very well, and
Hmm.
it may be an aspect of the building that's performing okay at the moment,
Mm.
but it is flawed ultimately,
Hmm.
and I can see with my eyes it's flawed, and I
Hmm.
know that it's a
Hmm.
vulnerable area, and if
Hmm.
something bad is going to happen around that, to ask a system to do that, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's a
Yeah,
tall order.
yeah. Great. Well, that's good for you in your industry.
Actually, yeah.
The future. What do you want to say to the business, Thomas?
Yeah, so we're just going to carry on providing value for our customers. I think success follows value. So our number one as objective is provide the best value and the best customer service we can. Provide a slick operation. I think we're constantly trying to develop ways of, as I say, getting the information back to the client sooner and making
Mm.
the consumer experience better.
Mm.
So we have an online portal. Everything's quite slick now. Look, we can't do an Amazon next day delivery job. We can't deliver things the next day. It's impossible. Surveyors need time to think about what they've seen, what they need to advise on, because ultimately we're making, serious recommendations, which we are liable for if we get them wrong. Um, so yeah, we're going to just keep providing value. We are picking up systems as they, new systems like report writing systems as they come about. But in terms of the on-site stuff, it's really difficult to innovate, and nobody's managed to do it yet. So yeah, we're all about just providing great customer service.
And do you think you'll expand in any way, either geography or
Yeah,
hiring or
geography, absolutely. Yeah, geography. I mean,
yeah?
we deal with London and shouldering areas at the moment, but moving into new cities would be it is a target. Um, you know, again, the more densely populated the place, the better.
Mm.
It means that there's more properties to survey in a square mile.
Mm.
If you're going a long way out of the cities, you tend to find that there's a lot of driving. Yes, it's probably less stressful, but the the driving you're doing can be for our surveyors can be massive. So we prefer to do with urban environments. But yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to ask this question, which is, as everybody in the UK is weirdly obsessed with house prices and where they're going to go. What's your view? You see hundreds of
We're gonna
valuations.
yeah, this is the clickbait topic, isn't it? I would say that it's flatlined in London.
Mm.
A little bit. And obviously, it
Mm.
does depend on, there's micro pockets of different areas where
Mm.
you get a hot area and you get
Mm.
there's development coming to a certain area. There are exceptions to the rule, but I speak to agents all the time and
Mhm.
they're telling me it's kind of flatlined for now. In
Mhm.
London, it's not going backwards,
Mhm.
which is great. I think there was risk of that with the stamp duty threshold changes. They changed on the 1st of April,
Yeah.
which means your stamp duty liability is higher um, for most people, depending on how expensive the house is. But for most people, it is. But we're seeing trade wars now. So we're seeing mortgage rates now they're expected to come down, I think by 0.5% in May.
Mm.
That's positive because I think people's monthly mortgage repayments are really high at the moment,
Mm.
unless they've fixed for some time. So I would say it's gonna remain flat until these trade wars end, people know what's going on, and hopefully mortgage rates do start to come down a bit. Um, and also, I'm not sure if people know this, but when banks lend money, they have stress tests. So they're relaxing the stress testing. So they're saying now, if you earn £50,000 a year, they're now lending five, sometimes six times your salary. And that only used to be four and a half. So your potential, potential lending, the amount you can receive is significantly higher. So that actually might push prices up a bit more
Mm.
into the sort of next year or two. You might find
Mhm.
that because people can take out enormous mortgages,
Mm.
they will
Yeah.
to own the house they want to own, and that will push
Yeah.
prices up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Last two questions as we move to the end of our chat. what are some of the highs and lows for you? Yeah, running your own business over the last couple of years and beyond that. What was that
I
look like?
I would say, the highs just they're soft highs, and that's just knowing we've got a team that are reliable and
Mm,
we can trust, and we get on, we work well together,
hmm hmm
and we meet
hmm
up on a regular basis, and we're all on the same page.
mm,
We're dancing to the same tune. We've got the same ideas. We've got the same outlook on
mm,
things.
mm,
I think that's a really nice soft high. The lows, that I mean,
hmm
th- with this line of work, we undertake thousands of surveys a year, literally thousands. And human error does creep into it sometimes. There are a very, very tiny number where things go wrong. We have to obviously make things right with the client, do things. But there have been times where one in particular, where one of our surveyors who no longer works for us did make a significant mistake, and resolving that was was actually a challenge in the end. Was difficult. So I say, again, it's a
Yeah,
very litigious world we live in, but that was a
yeah,
very, very challenging time, because we obviously want our customers to be happy, and making sure they were happy was a difficult, what
yeah.
whilst maintaining a proper commercial stance was a challenge. Um, but I think that's the cost of doing this type of business.
Yeah, it goes with the territory, doesn't it? And yeah, and that's what I mean. That's why you pay very high fees, don't you, in terms of professional indemnity insurance?
Huge.
Yeah,
Eye watering.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's finish with a high.
Yeah.
Tell us about a leader that you found particularly influential, beneficial, positive on your professional career.
I would say my last boss was so he
Mm,
was the chap who ran the small surveying company that I moved to. Um,
mm,
we were actually quite, I wouldn't like to admit it, but we were actually quite similar.
mm,
Um, and I do find myself sometimes now doing things like he did, and I don't know whether that's because we are similar in some ways as people, or whether I've just learned that from him. But um, as a leader, yeah, and a business person, really, really impressive. Very
mm,
entrepreneurial, always exploiting new avenues of revenue, marketing. Um, not a stupid guy, very, very clever guy.
mm.
But again, as I said earlier, that there were mistakes that were made, and I've kind of tried to not do those with this business. And some of those are management mistakes that were made. Things that I felt weren't done as best they could have been, and I tried to just change those. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like to admit it to him, and hopefully he's not listening. But yeah, he was a very good businessman, and a very good entrepreneur. I know he's retired early now, so he's done okay for himself. But yeah, he was a yeah, good businessman.
Why wouldn't you like to tell him?
I think you get too much gratitude out of it, just be too smug.
Okay. Because sometimes, quite often because I always ask, have you actually told him? And it's, oh, no, no, I haven't. Because I think
No, no.
actually sometimes it'd be quite nice to, but anyway,
Maybe, yeah,
everybody's
maybe in the
different.
future, maybe in the future, that's something that we could
Yeah.
actually have a coffee and yeah, have that conversation.
Because sometimes, I mean, and the same for me that there's a couple of early bosses that I had. And, those first guys that you come across or ladies that are very influential, they leave their mark in a good way if they're great people, and they're a bit like teachers, aren't they? In that respect, they have this like long kind of shadow
Yeah.
deep into your career.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think people realize some managers that how much impact and for how long a great leader can have on careers.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, if you are entrepreneurial and you are business minded, I think other business people have a really profound impact, probably more so than
Mm,
teachers for me, because
mhm,
although I'm sort of semi-academic, I'm not fully. Some people are sort of
mhm,
academia is all they're into.
mm,
For me, seeing a really great, slick business person or business leader or
mm.
entrepreneur, that leaves a bigger mark for me. I've felt I've learned more valuable things of them than actually our teachers.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Thomas. That was really
Yeah,
great
thank
talk.
you.
We could talk for longer, but that was fascinating. Thank you so much, and best of luck with your future expansion plans.
That's Matt.